was the poll question we went with in the final hour, seat?
Well, I went with one that I didn't ask you about, but we sort of hit it off air a little bit.
Okay.
If your finger was bent the wrong way, would you keep it as is or have it removed?
So Anthony Munoz has a pinky finger that it points. I mean, it's a right turn.
A
hard right turn.
Yes.
Yeah, Paul.
It's uncomfortable for us to look at, but for Anthony Munoz, a pretty tough guy, is it uncomfortable with day-to-day life? Or is he so used to it that it's no longer uncomfortable?
See, like when I look at a hand like that,
Yeah.
and your pinky is like headed, due east or west, right? I would imagine it getting caught on a lot of things, and that would really drive me crazy because it can't really serve a functional purpose anymore, right? Or like just think about every time you go to put on gloves.
Yes.
Every time that you go to open a doorknob or a car door or something like that,
Yeah.
I would imagine it always being in the way.
Ross Tucker played the position, our good buddy here. Let's look at your fingers. Are they deformed at all?
No, maybe that's why I wasn't as good as those other guys.
Look, your hands look like a baby. Like they're pristine.
My hands are fine. I don't have big hands. You're right about that. Well, Dan, to be fair, I have a huge head. So, I got to go closer with my hands to the camera, maybe. But no, in all sincerity, I have really short arms. I was not a great puncher, which is important. It's why I was not a great pass protector. So I dislocated my thumb. I remember the first day with the Cowboys, I dislocated this finger, and they had to pop it back in. But I never had it go left turn or right turn. But those guys, there's receivers also, Seton. There's receivers that have fingers go. Torrey Holt has a finger going in a crazy direction. But I don't know that I've ever heard any of those guys actually remove it. I think it ends up being functional in its own way. They get so used to it. They know how to use the right angle. They probably can hold a beer can better than you realize. They just put it in between they got their own cup holder.
All right. Yeah, and I want you to know this coming from a good place, with due respect to you, that you played the game. All right, we had Anthony Munoz on. Make a case might be the greatest offensive lineman in history. So the difference between you playing in the NFL, playing offensive line, and Munoz playing offensive line, but being a first ballot Hall of Famer, what are the traits that he has had that you didn't, or, what's the separation there with being in the NFL and then going to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, so very fair question. And I would say put Munoz to the side for a second, Dan. The difference between a starter, I started 25 games and played in 45 over 7 years. The difference between that and a guy that starts for over 100 games and plays 50, it's not as much as people think, Dan. It's like, if a game is 70 snaps, an elite player, a longtime starter, they'll do the right thing. They'll get a plus. They'll accomplish their mission 68 snaps, whereas a guy like me is maybe 65, 66. It's not as many plays as people realize. And by the way, those two plays might not impact the game at all, but it's not as much of a difference as people think. But over time, over the course of the season, that does make a difference. Munoz just had absolutely unbelievable feet. And even being around Tony Baselli this weekend, I was at the Hall. I mean, Tony is 6'7" and a quarter, 325, had really light on his feet, long arms. But ultimately, all those things just enabled him to do the job better. Because there's guys that don't have those physical characteristics, but are just so good with their technique that it enables them to still be that good of a player.
We often look at the defensive player as being angry, but offensive linemen have to play angry, but maybe not show anger. Is that fair to say that?
It's a great point, Dan. It's controlled aggression. If you watch the movies or you see people and they're like, I'm going to kill. Dude, you're going to whiff a bunch. You can't, it sounds good. I'm just going to go murder these guys. Well, they're going to make you miss. You go up against a guy that's shaking you, a Bosa or Aaron Donald, you can't just go out there and try to demolish guys. You have to have controlled aggression. You have to pick your spots. And honestly, Dan, I never thought blocking people was fun. Even my freshman year in college, I played defense. When they moved me to offense, the only thing I thought was fun, and still to this day think is fun, is really trying to put people down. Like really try, not injure, but what I enjoyed of the game. People ask me this all the time, Dan. I miss the money, whatever. I miss the camaraderie, but I got plenty of friends. I have plenty of beers. Like I'm fine with that. Dan, I miss the violence. As God is my witness, you can't replicate that anywhere else in life. I miss running into another human being as hard as I can, knocking them over, and just kind of like feeling the life come out of their body and knowing that you just caused them pain. I don't know why that gave me joy, but it did. And I miss that. I miss the joy of physically hurting another human being. And I think it's okay to like admit that.
Do you remember a particular pancake or moment where you're like, that's going to leave a mark, that's going to hurt?
Well, you know what I remember, Dan? The first play of my high school football career in 10th grade, it was a sweep to the right. I was playing linebacker. I got blindsided and I got the wind knocked out of me. My first play of high school football, I had never gotten the wind knocked out of me before, Dan. I didn't even know what was happening. I thought maybe I was about to die. I did not know what was happening. I couldn't breathe. The kid went for like an 80-yard touchdown. And what I remember is once I caught my breath and I figured out who did it, all I wanted to do the rest of the game was kill that kid. That's all I wanted to do. But yeah, no, I have one. You know, this is an interesting story to tell you in hindsight after what happened to him. But one of the stories I tell is 2003. I'm starting at right guard for the Buffalo Bills. We're playing the Miami Dolphins. And Junior Seau was so good at knowing what was coming and just being aggressive that it was a run to the right. And Dan, I pull to the right, and Junior Seau comes and jacks me up in the backfield because he saw what was coming. So he jacks me up, and I'm kind of holding on to him. And our running back, Travis Henry, cuts back the other way. And so Junior disengages from me and goes the other way. I have no idea what possessed me to do this, Dan. Like my natural reaction was, well, I can't hold him anymore. It's going to be a holding penalty. So as he disengaged with the hard part of my hand, I hit Junior in the back of his head as hard as I could. And it was like a sniper shot him. Like he went like that and he fell down flat on his face. And he got up, ran over me, goes, Tucker, that was BS. What the heck was that? Why are you laughing? And I was like, dude, you're going to the Hall of Fame. I just totally smoked you in the back of the head. That was hilarious. And he started laughing because that game was on national TV. And my buddy said to me after the game, dude, we saw you punch Seau in the back of the head. So that was one of the funny stories where there's a Hall of Fame player that referenced that. Although now it's weird, Dan, with everything going on with CTE and what happened with Junior, I almost look at that play a little bit differently now, but it's still a funny story just in the fact that he was mad at me. And then when he saw, I said, dude, you're on the Hall of Fame someday. I just smoked you in the back of the head. That was amazing.
He's Ross Tucker, CBS Westwood One color analyst, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Who did you meet this weekend that was more interesting or special than you thought?
You know what's crazy about it? I'm sitting there during the speeches, and Dan, I was like, it's really a unique thing. Right behind me was Doug Peterson, the Jags' current head coach. Right in front of me was John Robinson, you know, the legendary USC and Rams coach. And here's what's crazy. They tell the people before the speech, they confirm who's sitting where, because ESPN, NFL Network want to put them on TV. So they came over to John Robinson and to Tony's college O-line coach, Mike Barry, and they confirmed their names. So I said to my wife, I'm like, just so you know, we're going to be on TV. So whatever you want to like, whatever that means to you. So I sat up in my chair a little bit, Dan. I like pulled down my polo, like I didn't want to I wanted to look as tight as possible. I didn't want it to be like all baggy. So I'm like this. Now here's what's crazy on ESPN. My head got cut off because my sister-in-law sent a video. So all you could see is like but I could see on the board NFL Network. I got a bunch of NFL Network time, and I didn't know, Dan, whether to keep watching Tony and the speech or to like smile at the camera, because I knew it was a very awkward because I wanted as much FaceTime for you guys as possible.
Sure.
But everybody else is facing Tony watching the stage, and I'm behind John Robinson like.
You cheese ball.
So what I was going to say to you, though, right next to me, right, like two rows up was Shad Khan. I said, I'm going to go say hi to Shad Khan. My wife's like, tell him I like his mustache. I was like, yeah, he's never heard that one before. That's going to be my opening line to the owner of the Jags. My wife likes your mustache. Robert Kraft was right there. David Tepper. I mean, like, if you like football, you need to go to the Hall of Fame sometime, because it's just like NFL players walking around, not only the Hall of Famers, but all the guys that are coming back to support, whoever's getting in, like me supporting Tony.
Yeah.
They're just like walking around everywhere.
Did I make Baselli's speech?
No, why?
I've been Are you kidding me? I've been working on Baselli for 4 years to get him into the Hall of Fame.
You know what? You should have. That's the only reason why Tony even had me there, I think. I didn't play with him. I didn't play for the Jags. I think Tony literally invited me. Now, we do some Westwood One games together. Yeah. He mentioned the local guys. I thought where he had me sitting, because I was close to John Robinson, like when the ESPN guy was going around, like I was like, I am Ross Tucker. Like if he meant, like, this is Ross Tucker if he mentions me in the speech. But no, he only mentioned the local guys that I guess went to bat for him all the time. But yes,
Paulie, I'm shocked.
I'm going to get the transcript before we make a judgment.
Reggie Jackson mentioned me in his Hall of Fame speech at Cooperstown.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Well, Tony should have mentioned me before he mentioned you. I went on every platform I could to say Tony should be in 1,000,000 times. You know what, by the way? Yeah. I've decided after watching Tony, Sterling Sharp should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Sterling Sharp is the wide receiver of Tony Baselli's left tackle, of Terrell Davis's running back.
All right.
That phenomenal, but just had a crazy injury that didn't allow him to do it for a long time.
All right. I like that. We brought up some other names. Obviously, Tiki Barber, Otis Anderson, Ricky Waters. Like there's some running backs.
Roger Craig.
Craig.
I did this, Dan, I did this on my show on Friday. You know what my big takeaway is? There's a lot of guys that could be in the Hall of Fame. Like they're like, I had people calling up and they were saying Zach Thomas, Patrick Willis, DeMarcus Ware. There's a lot of Lester Hayes. The only guy and most people, you look at their resume and you're like, yeah, that guy could be that guy's a Hall of Famer. The guy I'm not, so you'd have to tell me, I got 3 calls on Jim Plunkett.
Yeah.
You think Jim Plunkett's a Hall of Famer?
Well,
he never even went to a Pro Bowl. He was never considered one of the 5 or 6 best.
But he won 2 Super Bowls. See, that's the problem. It's like Eli. I don't think Eli was a great quarterback. He didn't lead the league in anything but interceptions. So why is he in? If his name is,
there was a couple years where Eli went to Pro Bowls and was considered there was a few years where Eli was
back
considered
then,
one of the 5 best
when Jim Plunkett played, you went to the Pro Bowl. You didn't make up an excuse. Therefore, the 7th alternate gets to go to the Pro Bowl. Plunkett is underrated. Yeah, Paulie.
I have a wild stat I just found. Eli Manning in his career in the regular season, 117 and 117. He's a 500 quarterback. Jim Plunkett, for his career in the regular season, 72 and 72, 500 quarterback.
Isn't that unreal?
Yeah.
I noticed that. But my point is, Dan, there's a lot like Joe Klecko. The guys that really have it rough are the seniors candidates because there's a lot of guys.
Well, Joe Klecko,
I think are deserving.
Joe Klecko was the best defensive lineman on the sack exchange. Gastineau got all the credit. Joe, you ask any of those offensive linemen, Joe Klecko was a man. I mean, he was a beast there. Zach Thomas, one of the smartest players who's ever played the game.
Bingo. Dan, I started at least 3 games against Zach. He was incredible. He was incredible how instinctive he was, how much he knew what we were running. And you look at his stats are better than Urlacher. You know what happens? Urlacher was a great player, but Urlacher became the face of the Bears. And it's Chicago. It's a big market.
No.
So Urlacher gets in right away.
Yeah.
He didn't have a better career than Zach Thomas did, but Zach Thomas didn't get, wasn't like the marketing darling that Urlacher was.
No, I agree. And it's like Joe Namath. Love him, but Joe, to me, was not a Hall of Fame quarterback. You got more interceptions than touchdowns. He had one great moment, and it was maybe the biggest moment in NFL history. He played in New York. If he plays in Cleveland, he's not in the Hall of Fame. But he played in New York. He won that game. He guaranteed it, and you go into the Hall of Fame. So a lot of it is where you play. Not necessarily when as much as where you play. And I think that factors in as well. But, it's tricky because not everybody can get in. But I do think that there are some glaring omissions, and it feels like every year we're reminded of that. Hey, I got to run. It's always great to talk to you.
Absolutely. See you, Dan. See you guys.
That's Ross Tucker, CBS Westwood One.
Gotta go.
Ross Tucker Football Podcast.